Hey everyone, Andres Gambo here with another episode of the Ponytails podcast. Welcome, welcome. If this is your first show, hey, glad you're here. If you sold books, you kind of already know what this is about. If you didn't, well, buckle up. We interview people who sold books with a company called Southwestern Advantage. And while we are not in any way affiliated with the company, we all of us here that have been guests with us and myself all sold books door to door for this company during our college summers, where it was Monday through Saturday for 80 hours a week. And these books help families with their homework, with their grades, and all that jazz. You may have had someone to knock on your door trying to sell you these. You may have had a friend who did this, maybe your spouse, maybe your neighbor, maybe your roommate in college. But hopefully you enjoy. We've had stories of all the different things that people get up to once they do this program, because one of the things that we have in common is we like to take risks, which is why we went out and did this in the first place. And so we've had some amazing guests share some awesome wisdom and some valuable lessons throughout their career, throughout their lives, that they come and pour into us and share. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Some of them are funny, some of them are uplifting, and they're inspiring. Some of them are sad. We never know. We never do any sort of interview pre like knowledge or digging. We'd like to have all the organic conversations on the air, so you're getting to know our guests with us as we go along. I want to do a quick shout out because we are a monetized podcast, and so all of our sponsors, all of our partners are all people who sold books, and we like to keep it in the family. We love to give shout outs to those who are doing great things in our communities. And so, first off, we'd like to give a shout out to Cardinal Senior Benefits with Quintin Roberts and Pedro Vega. They've all been on our show before. So, you want to hear a little bit about their stories, go check out those episodes. They're going to be, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or YouTube or Spotify, just scroll up, you'll find them. But anyway, yeah, they are doing a great job with their Cardinal Senior Benefits team, and they are growing. They've doubled in size every year since 2018, since they started, and they are kicking some butt. If you guys are interested in getting more information about how to work with these guys, their culture is really, really cool. They took all the great aspects of Southwestern, kind of cut out all the negative stuff, and they also have built a great team around them. So their average agent is working about 31 to 34 hours a week, and they're earning anywhere between 5 to 10K of gross profit a week. Their top agents are obviously above that. But if you want to hear more about that, let us know. We'll get you in touch. Second shout out is to Will Metscher. Congratulations, brother, on getting married. Woohoo! Good job. You did it. 1, 2, 3. How'd you do it? But he is working with Southwestern Consulting, and he is right now growing his team as well. They are helping people change their lives, stay active, stay motivated, figure out a better work-life balance, figure out how to be more profitable, figure out how to be more effective at their job. If you want to hear more about those details, let us know as well. We can get you in touch with Will. And then last but not least, big quick shout out to Elevate Wellness. Man, these guys are crushing it. They are helping people get fit. If you just got done selling books, especially, they're doing what's called the Sizzler Shred, where it's a competition. They did it last year. They're repeating it again because it was super popular. They gave out about $4,500 worth of really awesome prizes to the top 3 people who finished in the competition. And they also donated $1,000 towards a service project, which is really, really cool. Seth Hood, Zane Gallagher are crushing it with them. If you want more details on how to get on your best shape ever, or if you're going to Sizzler and you want to join that competition, let us know. And I would love to get you set up with those guys. They are going to get you into shape. Now, my guest for today, Brian Slipka. Man, this is so awesome. We just get referrals and referrals and referrals of awesome book people who have been awesome and gracious to share their time with us on the air. And Brian is no different. So he sold for 3 summers from 1998 to the year 2000. Which is phenomenal. That was the summer I moved to the United States. So he was knocking on doors as I was changing countries. Good year, 2000. He was part of the JYD organization. He went to University of Minnesota, originally from Burnsville, Minnesota. If you want to get in touch with him, you can go find him on LinkedIn. So maybe you listen to this episode and you're like, hey, I need to pick this dude's brain. Or maybe you sold books, Brian, and you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen him in a while. You can go find him there. You can also Google him, and you'll find ways to get in touch with him there. LinkedIn is probably going to be your best option. His favorite Augmentino scroll is number 9, I Will Act Now. And speaking of which, we'll have him on the air here after our intro. See you guys in a bit. Ponytails Podcast. Here we go. Welcome, sir. How's it going?
Fantastic. How are you guys all doing today here on Ponytails?
We take over the world. That's what we like to say. Just
It's
doing
fantastic.
phenomenal. Oh man, well, welcome to the show, Brian. I am excited to get to know you here. You were talking a little bit about businesses and stuff that you own, and I love the fact that we don't do pre-approach. I know it's super counterproductive to what we were taught in sales school, like do pre-approach, but I just love getting to know people from the beginning. So let's dive right in. 2000, that was 22 years ago. What have you been up to since, and what are you up to now, my friend?
Well, that obviously a loaded question, Andres, but I will tell you when I reflect on the whole notion of pre-approach, I reflect on the whole reality of what's happened since I left the book field. It's really been a fun story. But no, I mean, I got out of the book field after 3 summers, so I was a first year. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about the time in the field, but sold for 3 summers, first year, then an org, then a student manager, then an org leader. So I got to experience the full benefits of Southwestern, and frankly, I still carry it with me to this day, man. I mean, I'm sure you do as well, and I reflect and talk about it to people all the time, and they look at me like I have sometimes like 3 ears or 3 eyes, but especially in today's day and age, I mean, for all of you listeners who are part of the Southwestern Advantage, in the book field today, I mean, man, hats off to you. I mean, the world has changed, and I'm the first to admit that. And so I love when folks knock on my door. In fact, I wish more people did. They don't realize how good they'd have it. I mean, I give them a hard time, but I also end up buying something from them. So, and that's all from the book field, right? So what I'm doing
That's
now
right, sir.
is yeah, what really happened after I left the book field is I went and worked for in technology software, and then that really evolved into finance, technology finance. During that time, with another book field member, Joel Selesky, we started buying rental properties, and I think a lot of folks that are listening to me that remember me from the book field know that Joel and I bought a couple of rental properties while we were still selling door to door, and that was unique, obviously, just being 20 21 years old, buying actual homes that we lived in and rented out to our buddies, and a lot of times other booksellers. And so out of that, we kept growing. We kept buying a lot of properties. I think we got up to 14 or 15 properties at one point in time. Now,
Whoa.
from a career standpoint, I was again selling software and technology, and then moved into technology finance. But throughout that whole time, Joel and I remained very entrepreneurial, kept growing our portfolio of real estate, moved into commercial properties. Then started as we started having families of our own. We started to wind down our real estate portfolio and then get into other investments together. I then veered off. He's a financial advisor. I started doing a lot of other things, entrepreneurial, doing a lot of angel investing as I was having success in the real world with my day job. And then really, Andres, I guess where the story kind of takes a fun turn, not or twist, or however you want to call it, next chapter was when I decided to really start buying businesses. I started buying operating companies. So rather than being an investor,
Whoa.
when you have success in life and you can you have a little bit of disposable income, it's really easy to start investing in things, which I did. But after the recession, a lot
Yeah.
of us got humbled, myself included. I mean, I got humbled quite a bit. Now, the good thing is I had a well-paying day job. I just kept grinding through it. I had a couple of kids at home, and what I did though, and what I realized from the recession was, man, if I'm going to be, and this is a book field thing, if I'm going to be successful, if it's to be, it's up to me. I gotta put my faith. Besides my faith in my maker and in Christ and in God, which is near and dear to me, which I also learned on the book field. It,
Yeah.
it From an earthly sense, it has to be on me. And so I actually went off on my own and started buying controlling interest in 100%, complete acquisitions of small Main Street businesses. And so fast forward to today, long way of answering your question, Andres. Today I have a portfolio of 26 operating companies that are businesses that are all across the United States. They employ well over 1,000 people, and in all sorts of diverse industries. I have a small investment bank, a capital markets and leasing company. I have 8 businesses in the manufacturing space, 7 businesses in the transportation space, a few distribution companies, handful of other manufacturing services businesses. I own a minor league baseball team, and so just involved in a lot of
Wow.
a lot of things. We've become a diversified holding company, and so it's been a fun adventure, and a lot of the stuff all stems back to my experiences on the book field.
Whoa. Okay. So I have so many questions. That is, first of all, congratulations. That is so cool. It's good to see a bookman just crushing. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Wow. Okay. So first question. I mean, so 2000, you start buying properties, renting them out, and then you kind of hinted at this a little bit, but I wanted to ask because you're like the third or fourth alumni in the last few months that has been who left Southwestern right around 2000, 2000 between 2000 and 2005, and then they were doing great and things were solid, and then the recession hit, and whoops, like there was a lot. But you were in investment property, you own properties, and when the housing market crashes, I mean, how did you navigate me through that with like mentality stuff? You said you grounded out, but maybe to normal people that sounds easier said than done. So what was kind of like that mentality going into it? How did you use kind of your Southwestern experience to kind of make your way through this complicated mess that was the '08 crash?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it was one of those things where Joel and I owned a lot of the rental properties together, and as we sort of reached this apex of the real estate market, we both agreed that it was probably getting a little frothy, and
Yeah.
we were busy again starting families. I already had one child; he was about to get engaged, and so we agreed that we should start maybe selling off some of the properties. So we were actually spared of a lot of
Oof.
the downside because we had cashed out of a lot of the things. That being said, and this is where both Joel and I did our own thing. I started buying and investing in minority interests in venture kind of angel investing, and that's really where I learned my lesson. I got humbled. I made quite a few angel investments. That's where you invest anywhere from $20,000 to call it maybe $100,000 at the top end, and maybe you get like 5-10% of the company, maybe more, maybe less, but it's basically you're an investor, right? And you're an angel investor trying to help a company get off the ground. And in the lead up to the recession, I started believing my own press. I mean, I started getting a little bit too arrogant and thinking I kind of knew what I was doing, and frankly, the hubris of my success, my success here on earth from a vocation standpoint, professional standpoint, gave me a lot of cash flow, a lot of thinking that hey, I can go deploy this, and that's where I stumbled. So it wasn't so much the real estate; it was more the other parts of the recession where these angel investments, almost all those companies didn't make it. And so,
Right.
like here I'm throwing money in, and I wanted to have impact and influence and have a say in these companies' decisions and all that stuff. I'm like, hey, don't do this, do this, and they're like, hey, what do you're just an investor, and that was one thing that stuck with me that maybe I'll talk about in a few minutes, but like this notion of man, like if I'm going to put my money into something, I want to have impact and influence around it. And so,
Right.
so that was one lesson I learned during the recession. That if it's back to the Southwestern bookfield sort of mantra of you got to control the controllables, and you can control if you get up and work. You can control if the Augmentino number 9. I will act now. I mean, man in the arena. That's why Teddy Roosevelt quote, "Man in the arena," is so
Yeah.
powerful to
It's
me
my favorite.
because
Yeah.
because he's it's the that's where the credit goes to the person who's actually in the arena, actually acting now, whose face is marred by blood and sweat and all the
That's
great
right.
stuff that Teddy's
Great
talked
quote.
about. Yeah, so that really inspires me, but it comes along with it like that bias for action, be willing to fail, act now.
Beautiful. Hey, that's a good lesson to learn, and it's a tough lesson to learn, unfortunately, especially given the time. But that's brilliant. So talk to me a little bit more about because now so you're 26, right, and a minor league baseball team. So one of the things that I actually wanted to that I love asking people in your position, when we sold books, we got taught how to sell, we got taught how to like customer service, and all of these things are key elements to running a good operation, right? But there's other stuff that we don't necessarily learn that also are just important, maybe like the legal side of things, maybe the marketing side of things, maybe the general, like when it's on you to do all of the things, there's some things that we realize we don't like. What do you think are some of the things that people don't necessarily maybe learn when they're going door to door selling books that you picked up along the way, when it comes to like the actual, maybe scaling of a business, the legal, getting an LLC, something as simple as that, to like, acquiring a business. What are some of those lessons you learned outside of Southwestern?
Yeah, well, I think you had to take what you did learn from Southwestern and then apply that, and then look at the gaps. And what you did learn from Southwestern was things like profit and loss, right? Like, I mean, you sell something for $1, and it costs you through the Southwestern wholesale price, whatever it is, I can't remember what it was back when I
I think it was
sold that. I think
60
it was like,
cents. Yeah.
yeah, something like that. It was about 40% margin, right? So you learned about gross
Right.
margin. So then what you learned is if you start doing price discounting, you know, on that $1, and you sell it for 80 cents, because I know they train against doing that, but the reality is I've seen a lot of student managers, org leaders, discount the heck out of stuff just to move units, right? And again, when you do that, you're eroding margin. So the whole notion of it's not what you even how many units you sold during summer, it's what your check was. That whole thing stuck with me. I was never one that had it. Like, I mean, I actually was the one that probably didn't have as big of a check. Like, one of the guys I mentioned before, Joel Selesky, a great friend of mine to this day. I mean, we could sell the same amount of units, but he'd get a bigger check than me, right? Why? Because he was very disciplined around his margin. He was very disciplined around his expense control. So anyway, that's what we learned, right? What you didn't learn in the book field was the brutal reality of like how you even get to that point, right? I mean, like the brutal reality of like creating the disciplines, which again Southwestern taught us in sales school, and what Southwestern sort of already had a system process around. What you don't learn when you're in the real world, starting your own business or buying a business or taking over a business or running a business, or even in a lot of high end day jobs, is the reality that you got to create those systems and processes
Yeah.
so
Yes,
that
sir.
those behind you and those after you can have success. And so just the appreciation for what we all learned in the book field, none of us should take for granted. Like those systems and
Right.
processes were tried and true. Now, were they perfect? No. I mean, there's a lot of things I didn't like, I didn't agree with, but those
Sure.
systems and processes were indisputable and extremely valuable. And so when I look at my different operating companies, we acquired a business just last week, and that business, it was one of my smaller businesses, but what it did really well, it's hawkish around margin. It doesn't discount its value proposition to its customers, and I take a lot of pride in that. And it had a lot
Amen.
of processes to go alongside it. So I bought the business because I think we can scale it and grow it. And
Yes.
if it was a business, conversely, a business where they're kind of owner centric, or where they everything's really custom or unique, well, that's not as scalable. So that there's nothing wrong with that. It's just you got to realize that without systems and processes, it's hard to grow and scale and duplicate and replicate. And that's again a lot of stuff we had in the book field.
Well said. I read a book called Scaling Up. Uh, a phenomenal book, and that basically that is the message, because it's not possible to scale unless you have a system pretty much for everything. So, like, even here at the podcast, we turned it into a company. We have a team, and we're doing this, and it's just like the goal of this. It's almost unattainable, but it should be that our systems are so good that if we all just left the instructions on how to run it, a whole different group of people could come in and just nothing would change. It would all just still run perfectly. And those are like the systems, things like 30 demos a day, right, in the book field, or
Yep.
the way that books are bought, shipped, delivered, all that stuff is are all set for you. And people don't think of that when they leave Southwestern. And so having those systems in place, that's a brilliant answer. Ah,
Yeah, well, and,
great
and, and
stuff.
I just gotta say, I gotta say, Andres, I mean, like it is so critical. I mean, the reality around that comment and that statement, and just that the notion of what we're of what we're talking about, and how the systems and processes, and if they exist or don't exist, the transferability in being a professional business buyer like I am, and having a holding company of operating businesses, and then also having an investment bank where we help from an advisory standpoint of helping people sell it or transition their life's work. Think about how when we go to as an advisor, and we go to different business owners that are selling their business, and they say, well, yeah, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. I mean, one of our first questions we ask them is like, So if you got hit by a bus, how would your business do? And if the answer is like, well, not very good, we're like, your business isn't as valuable as you think it is. It could be
Right.
making a lot of money, but if it's only as valuable as you, then you got to change that. And this scaling up notion that you talked about in the book, I mean, to me it reeks of like security or insecurity. If you're an owner centric kind of kind of person where like tasks don't transcend you, that means there's some sort of deep rooted insecurities around what why is that, like, and it's not bad, it's not a bad thing, it's just call it for it is, like you gotta why are you insecure? Is it because you think that nobody else can do the job quite as well as you? And that, again, that's not a bad thing, that's an insecurity,
The
you
reality.
gotta be okay
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
So anyway, part of my secret sauce in what I'm doing nowadays is I've just really focused on things that transcend myself. So the more I think less, so it's, have you heard the Mother Teresa quote? You don't think less of yourself, you just think of yourself less.
Yes.
You actually have a higher esteem of yourself the more that you allow others to do a lot of the work, or you create processes and systems around others to do the work. So again, on the book field, the one thing, just to come back around to your original question a few minutes ago,
Yeah.
you'd ask like, is there things that you didn't learn on the book field? I mean, I think the book field does such a good job of talking about how you got to work hard and you work 80 hours a week. And I was honestly one of those guys that never got off schedule. Like, the most off schedule I got was maybe like I'd camp out at like a sit down demo, right? I mean, it'd be like a 40 or 45. I'd let it get too long, right? But like, I just was a grinder. And so I just kept grinding. And, I wasn't the best or smoothest guy, but like I kept grinding, right? And so that was a positive that Southwestern taught me. But the oftentimes greatest strength, greatest weakness. I mean, there's other ways to be effective and to produce, and a lot of it's learning how to delegate, learning how to let go, and actually being more, doing less, high impact, low touch. And so as I've matured, I almost had to learn that way of being productive and scaling. Is that, because Southwestern, you got to be knocking on doors yourself, right? And you got to be
Right.
selling yourself. And yeah, you can build a recruiting team, but even that you got to do yourself. And so you're
Mhm.
always on this wheel, right? So how do you create an ecosystem where you're actually decentralized and you're not doing a lot, and yet you're still, benefiting, and
Right.
having a high impact? That's probably the one thing I didn't learn in the field that I think, combined with what I did learn, has given me, I guess, a leg up.
That is brilliant. I appreciate you saying all this because this is the kind of stuff that when you leave Southwestern, you leave thinking you're bulletproof, and in some ways you are. I mean, like your resume's star studded, right? You have this like really credible way of showing that, hey, I can bust my ass, I can work hard, right? I can do blah blah blah. But from a standpoint of like, all right, now you're going to run your own business. You see it so often, even with people who are starting businesses right now that are book kids that are just most recently left, and you're like, man, especially with like marketing, social media, and all that stuff. That is a whole new, different layer of the juicy business onion that also you can peel back and be like, there's a whole world here that, you know, that's more than just knocking on doors. And so
Yeah.
that's I'm glad that you're saying this because that's a good reality to face. Once you leave, you're like, hey, you did great, and you've been taught probably the hardest part, which is once the plan is set and the systems are set, somebody's got to work that plan and work the system, which you can do great.
Yeah.
But you also need the other side, which is how are you going to set that plan? Like, who sets that plan for you? And ain't nobody. There's no HR. You're HR, right? There's the law stuff, the legal stuff, NDAs, all this thing. You need to go figure that out too. So I'm glad that you're mentioning
Yeah.
all this.
Well, and again, that connects kind of fully full circle on what you're asking. I mean, all of that stuff I didn't learn on the book field because they didn't, I mean,
Yeah.
as soon as I had that big aha moment of like, okay, be more by doing less. That means building a team of experts, people you can operate at the speed of trust, as I tell my team members. So, having a legal team, having a finance team, I have specialists, so I can let my light shine and let their light shine in unique ways that where they've been gifted. And so the thing about Southwestern, you kind of had to do it all, and that's why
Yeah.
some folks failed. Right now, again, what it did do though is it exercised every muscle. So I did learn, like, I don't ever want to have to do certain things again, right? I love the relational elements of
Yes.
selling door to door. I love that first interaction when, and I'm gonna model this. Do you guys all remember this? Where I'll have to, do you mind if I get up and model
Oh,
this for
please.
everybody?
This is great. Yeah, yeah.
So remember when we'd sell door to door, and at least when I was selling, we do the training where you knock on a door, knock knock, one, two steps back, and then you'd always turn sideways, right? Well, so the reality is when Mr. and Mrs. Jones would answer the phone, you wouldn't do hi, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. You'd have a pen and a paper, and you'd be like, you'd step back,
Step back.
and you'd create a
Yes.
buying environment. You'd be really calm and relaxed. And you'd say hi, and you give them a smile, and then you'd start with asking to sit down, right? But the bigger point is you created a non-threatening environment, which was incredibly important for them to have that subconscious feeling of this person's warm, this person's non-threatening. A lot of times I'd even I'd even have my pen and paper, and I'd be like this so they know that I was vulnerable. And so my point is, that's what I loved about what I learned from Southwestern. I learned the nonverbal stuff. I love the
Huge.
relational sit down dynamic elements of creating a buying atmosphere, and that sort of thing. What I didn't like is the constant. I hated my pre-approach pad. I mean, like I was so disorganized. I was so disorganized. Like, I was never good at organizing my night. I may have six sit down demos, all sales, but it took me 3.5 hours to do it because I was so disorganized. Like, where am I supposed to go next? I can't remember. Like, where was that pad? And so
Yeah.
for me, it's funny how everybody, whereas some of the most organized people, would have had, a lot more productivity. But anyway, so that's the fun
That's the
stuff when
cheese.
I reflect. Yeah.
That's good stuff. And it's important to note, we're not saying that stuff was, yeah. I'm not saying that because Southwestern didn't teach us that stuff that it was a bad experience. On the other hand, it's quite the opposite. Like, you could have all the great systems in place and all these great things in place, but you don't have that, and you'd actually are way more likely to fail than if you have the Southwestern training and just kind of figure it out, kind of like you did, where it's just like, hey, we had Michelle Mitchell on here, and she started Hump Kombucha, which is one of our sponsors, by the way. It's all we drink on the
Yeah.
show. Amazing stuff.
Awesome.
And
Shameless plug. Love
yeah,
it.
shameless plug. We love it. But I always mention this story because this is what she said, and I thought it was just so valuable. She goes, "Look, do you think I knew how to not they're nationwide now. They're in like every Walmart or whatever, all the Costco's." And
Yeah.
she was like, at first it was all I knew was how to make kombucha and how to knock on doors. So that's what I did. And it's like
I love it.
amazing, like just so cool that she did that, right? She could have had all the other stuff, but not knowing how to like get out there. You see it all the time. I'll go to the doctor and the doctor can't make eye contact. And you're like, dude, look at you're talking to me about my health. Please look at my face so I know that I
Yeah.
know that you're talking about, like, you know what you're talking about, right? Things like that. On the other hand, I go to my chiropractor. That dude, I think he must have sold books, or he must have, like, one of those people that didn't sell but should have. Because like that
Yep.
guy is like on it. He's with you. He's personable, and you're like, I'm coming back here even if I move away from this city. Like, you are worth it. You are such a cool person to come and do this with. So I'm glad that you're mentioning all this. Last question I'll ask you about this, or I guess not last question, but one thing I'll ask you that I am curious. Let's say we do have people listening to this that are probably small business owners that maybe someday are hoping to scale, or get acquired and then by someone like yourself, and then exit. And so what are some key things maybe to avoid or to make sure you do as you're growing, besides having those systems in place, that you notice that it's like, hey, if a company has, let's say they have all the systems in place and they also have this, I'm very interested. Or on the other hand, if a company has systems in place but they have that's a red flag. I don't want to do that. Like, do you have any of those insights for us that might be helpful?
Yeah, yeah. So we touched on it already. I mean, owner centricity drives value down. So while you're running a business, and while you're having a ton of success, hopefully all of the listeners, former booksellers, are having a ton of success. If the success is dependent upon what you do the next day, and the next day after that, I mean, the enterprise value of your business is very little, because what that means is you have to, so the new owner would have to replace you. So at the highest of levels, owner centricity is generally a bad thing. So what I learned at a young age, and I even learned this again, I learned this in the book field too, being a student manager and an org leader, is I got paid a little, not a lot, but get paid a little bit on the production of others. So how can you create a scalable solution where you can let your light shine in a manner that's high impact, low touch? And so from a desirability of businesses is you want to have simple things, that it's all about the structure. I mean, do you have timely reporting? Is your data actual and factual? Do you have a detailed customer set and data points and analytics that support what you're doing? And I would like to give a shout out to the younger generation, is the millennial and zennials. I'm at the very end of the I guess Gen Xers, and I'm generally speaking an older soul probably. So, but the reality is millennials and zennials, Gen Z, do a really good job of having analytics, okay, and having the quantitative elements lined up, and that's really attractive on a business that's being transacted or transitioning, because obviously that's data, right? And then that's going to help the new buyer coming in. On the other hand, if there's not qualitative elements around relational connections with clients, where the clients are really find value in the business that maybe you're selling, for specific relational reasons, because of the value you bring them every day, not just a commodity sort of I do this too kind of thing, where with a bunch of competitors in the marketplace. That's you want to be unique. You want to have value drivers that make you unique. And so again, if you're a business owner, anybody listening, I mean, just what are you doing that's unique? How are you not just another Me Too, not Me Too movement, whole different thing. No, but how are, yeah, but from a Me Too perspective with your competition, like if you're just another financial advisor, if you're just another consultant, if you're just another whatever it is you do, your craft or service or product that you have, widget, you aren't going to stand out, and that's not going to be as attractive. What is attractive is something that's unique, a differentiating value. What's also attractive is lack of owner centricity. You make money while you sleep. The entity buying your business doesn't even have to run it, and they can still make their money and get their return. Things like that over time become almost second nature to business buyers like myself.
That's brilliant. And then for you, what's like the North Star? I mean, right now, you've gone through some ups and downs. You've learned some lessons about along the way that are valuable after selling books and during selling books. You've seen a really, really awesome market where, as far as like the stock market, you've seen some lows. What's the next 10, 15 years look like for you? Where are you headed?
Well, the name of my holding company is True North Equity Partners, and then all my entities around it. They're all independently structured, but a lot of them are True North. So I have True North Mergers and Acquisitions. I have True North Aviation. I have True North, a lot of different True North entities. True North Sports. And so True North to me is it's a nod to my faith, and I'm a strong Christian, and the book field fortified that. When going got tough, I leaned on my faith a lot, and then the promises of that and the gospel. Frankly, I mean, it was really powerful for me. But the True North element is that servant leadership. Our mantra. We have a culture creed that all of us operating partners, all my operating partners agree to. We're servant leadership. We encourage, equip, collaborate, and uplift. Right. We run our companies in a manner that leans on positivity and leans on can do, bias for action, be willing to fail, make aggressive mistakes. We'll always have your back if a team member is making an aggressive mistake. What we don't like and frankly allow over time is somebody just to be inactive. So again, back to Og Mandino, I will act now. I mean, Like we reward and promote that sort of behavior in our culture of businesses. And so, my guiding star, my Northern Light is really, to have my holding company be, be truly true north. So one of my, and chasing impact and influence over mere profits. The family of companies generated tens of millions of dollars of profit, not just revenue, 100, well over nine figures in revenue, right? But tens of millions of dollars in profit. Now, there's a lot of obligation behind that too. It's not just all coming to me. That's for sure. but we're reinvesting. We do strategic leverage buyouts. Very much it's a cash flowing model, and we really judge our success, Andres, based on how much we give away, not how much we keep for ourselves. So last year, our impact and influence with the ministries and charities that we supported was well into the seven figures. And that's something I'm super proud of. I would love to, my vision for True North is to have a day here in the not too distant future where we're free flowing to the tune of endowing ministries and endowing different things that we care about, to have that echo effect and to truly leave a legacy that will keep on going with accountability. Though it's not just to give money away to give money away; it's to actually have accountability to those recipients for them to have that echo effect and exponential impact, where it can be the gift that keeps on giving. That's what True North's all about, and that's what drives me every day. I mean, it's not just making a buck and flipping a company. We have a buy and hold strategy. We don't generally sell our businesses. We hold them for the long term. We acquire reliably profitable, boring, family-owned businesses. Heartbeat of America. These are the blue-collar businesses that a lot of other private equity folks just drive right by and don't care about. We care about them. Why? Because we want to be a steward of what they did, and we want to be a steward of the profits they produce. So that's our mantra. And I could talk all day about it. So
that's awesome.
Don't get me started.
Hey, that's my job. Is to get you started. No, that's awesome, man. I think that's so cool. And what I think is really great about what we're doing here on the show is that there's probably going to be people listening to this that probably are some of those businesses, those mom and pop places that have been going and they're going well, and that could connect with you in a way that would be really valuable to them. I can think of, like, as you were saying all this, I'm like, man, there's like 3 or 4 previous guests that I've had on here that I'm like, I should connect you with them. Just even if nothing happens, just to have that connection would probably be very valuable to both of y'all. So that's really cool. That's really cool. Do you still keep in touch with a lot of book folks nowadays, or what's kind of that relationship?
I do to some extent. So I hosted Christian artist Jeremy Camp at my backyard of my house a couple months ago, and it was a big fundraiser. We raised almost $250,000 in just one night. Did it all like really quick, and a lot of business owners were there. And anyway, we had a few folks that attended, including Travis and Kate Wilson. Travis and Tony Ripley, who's been on this show. We're together. Travis, really, we worked for Travis and Junkyard Dogs, and also a lot of other folks. We worked with Tim Ritzer and that whole ecosystem of Junkyard Dogs.
Tim has a whole. Tim and Todd have that's a whole different crew right there. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're great. I haven't seen Tim in a while, so Tim, if you're listening, we got to get together, man. It's been a long time, but no, we worked with Travis. Travis was at the concert, and Travis and Kate were there. It was great to see them. We still keep in touch with them. We keep in touch with Joel, Selesky, obviously, and a handful of others that I sold with, obviously Tony Ripley. But it's crazy how you can go different ways in life, and you still have that common bond. As you know, I'm sure it's been talked about it a lot in this show. But like Kirk Henslick lives in Australia. I mean, when Kirk comes back to the States and he's in Minneapolis, he'll always look me up and we try to get together. That's awesome. I love stories like that. And Holly Pebecki, who sold in the out of the Wisconsin marketplace, she's now living outside of Chicago, and we still, when she's in town, we try to get together, we stay in touch. So it's just fun having that network that again, is, as we all know, is unique. You build in relationships through shared experiences, and the Southwestern experience was unlike anything else that you can share with somebody else, and that's why so many these friendships last
Yeah.
forever. That's why folks at the book field will end up getting married and that sort of thing. I mean, because of those shared experiences that you have that are so powerful.
Yeah, we call it shared trauma, but yeah,
That's true. So
we've
definitely some
all
trauma
cried
there.
on a curb in the rain on a Tuesday, week 4 of your first summer. You're like, ah, you hear that story, you're like, I know, I've been there.
That's that's when you pull out the letter of why of that you write in sales school about how I'm not going to quit, right? So
I am rational, right? If I'm reading this, I
yes,
am not rational. As I wrote this, I
yes,
was rational. Yeah. See,
love it.
that's the funniest thing about this show is so our oldest guest, and by oldest I mean like sold earliest on, was Jim Potts. He sold in 1968, man,
Wow.
1968. And to hear him tell his story, it's some differences, right? He hitchhiked to the book field instead of actually drove there, yada yada yada. But overall, like the products were different. Right? But overall, I mean, it was the same thing. It's like
Yes,
we still can connect
simple
on this.
truths, indisputable truths about relation, about humanity and about human relationship and human emotions and failure and perseverance and grit and all those things are indisputable and are timeless.
That's right, sir. Do you mind if we jump into some Southwestern stories and
Sure.
transition
Yeah.
into that?
Heck yeah.
I'm going to give a quick shout out to some of our friends here on the show. Again, a big shout out to Pat Roach, Southwestern Real Estate. If you guys are listening right now and you're wanting, big fans of HGTV, you like the housing market stuff, and you want to jump into a company that's really solid for real estate, gosh, man, this is a good place to start. They're in 14 different states and expanding. You probably remember Pat Roach, don't you, Brian? Or I don't know if you remember him. Yeah,
The name.
he
Yeah.
Pat's awesome. The culture that they've created there is 99% drama free. Can't guarantee 100, but 99% drama free. So if you guys want to learn a little bit more about that, they have a really good onboarding set way to get you going and off to a hot start. All of their agents are crushing it. If you don't believe me, just go back and listen to the episodes that we've had them on for. And Pat's coming back for his second episode because he just went back to, I think it was Minnesota. Oh no, he was in Wisconsin to help his daughter deliver books. His daughter sold, and he went to help her deliver. So we'll have him back for that. And then last shot to Cardinal Senior Benefits. Whoops, excuse me. Cardinal Senior Benefits again with Quintin Roberts. Greta Huerta, she wanted to share some wisdom with you guys. She's crushing it right now. And the biggest thing that she said, when you are starting to make real life money, like outside of Southwestern, big girl and big boy money, invest in yourself, get yourself an emergency fund, and start your retirement fund. And I feel like Brian could definitely agree to that. Start investing in yourself and your future first. Save up. Don't go buy all the new Jordans or whatever these kids are buying nowadays. Invest in yourself. Thank you so much, Greta. If you want to join her on our team, let us know. All right, my man. So let's rewind the clocks. Go back to 1998. What a year. And where you're in the University of Minnesota, minding your own business. How the heck did you first hear about this thing? We always like to hear the recruitment story, and usually the first summer, but also the rest of them. But just like that first, like the first of first. So tell us how this happened.
Yeah, so I did not sell books after my freshman year of college. I stayed in the dorms and had a great year. I actually got a crazy summer internship that wasn't selling books. I actually got an internship at Ernst and Young, the accounting firm, and to be
Whoa.
a rising sophomore and be working with young professionals. I was wearing a suit. That was back in the day when people still wore suit and ties to work every day. So I had to go get suits and ties to wear to work that summer after my freshman year. I learned a ton about the business climate and the workplace. And actually, I think it made me better when I did start selling door to door. I actually continued to work there during the school year in subsequent school years after I had started selling door to door. So, anyway, fast forward, start of my sophomore year. In the dorms, my freshman year, I had lived next door to Joel Selesky and Eric Colchin, and those two both sold for Southwestern. Okay, and Joel I already mentioned earlier in the show, but Eric, or we always called him Chico, his nickname. But Joel and Eric came back, and both of them were changed. I mean, there's a level of professionalism, there's a level of acute awareness of surroundings and confidence around being in control of their own narrative, being in control of their own destiny, of their own thoughts, of emotions, all those things. There's like an intellectual advancement and then emotional advancement that I was really impressed by. And so I got to talking to Joel, and I'm like, really, dude, you're like different, man. Like I got to hear more about this Southwestern thing after all. And I just was really intrigued by. I mean, yeah, you can make the money, but after I had made a lot of money at selling or working at Ernst & Young that summer, so it wasn't a money thing for me. It was more like, man, the way they changed was impressive. Like that was the way they evolved and developed and grew and matured, and the wisdom I was really impressed with. So anyway, long story short, I mean, we were all peers. Joel introduced me to Travis Wilson, who I had already met. I'd already met the previous year with like Mike Lippert and and Tony Ripley and some of these other guys. I had already met all of them. They were all in the prime of their selling, Southwestern selling careers. And Travis had become the org leader for Tim Ritzer, and so I met Tim Ritzer as well. And it just became a natural for me. It was one of those things where I said, I'm doing this. Like I'm doing this. I want to learn and grow. It was so again. I think the key thing that for listeners to take away is I did not do it for the money. I mean, I knew you could make good money, but I'd already tasted what it was like to make good money. I did it for the maturity and wisdom and how I was going to learn and overcome adversity. And I'd had a relatively beaver cleaver upbringing. Life had come pretty easy for me. Hadn't had a lot of trials of like strife or again adversity. And so for me, it was like it was like self-imposed adversity I wanted to face. I wanted a challenge, and I think that's what really drew me to Southwestern. So that my first summer, we were in Kansas. Um, I sold outside of Leavenworth County, Kansas. And the one quick funny story was, Leavenworth is home to the county penitentiary, the state, the military, the federal There's like prisons everywhere you go. And so imagine me selling door to door, knocking on doors. Who do they think's at the door? Some escapee or who, or whatever. So that summer I had no less than 4 guns pointed at, basically as I approached, like, hey, what are you doing here? Not like I was gonna get shot, but like, like, what are you doing here with their gun? Like,
Yeah.
and then me having to again learn my non-threatening verbal cues. I'm not here to. I'm not. I'm just a college kid. Got bit by a dog. Got in a horrible car accident. And I was out of the bookfield for 4 days. Actually, it was longer than that. It was like 6 days. But I went home for 4 days. The doctors made me go home. And again, I think a lot of folks, if you were to ask Travis, hey, did you think Brian was going to come back? I don't know if he remembers this very well because I was just a lowly rookie. But I was like, heck yeah, I'm coming back, Travis. And I think Travis was like, I don't know, because I'd been in the hospital for 2 days. But I was, I had made a commitment to sell and to finish the summer. And so I was right back in the field. I had bad concussion, broke some ribs, all that sort of thing. And I came right back in the field and started selling again. So, and that's a whole nother story for another day, right? As far as like the whole the car accident and all that. But I was driving my host family's car, so that wasn't a good thing. I mean, it was, but it all worked out. I sold about I think 25 or 2,600 units my first summer. Obviously made the trip and qualified for the Sizzler, and that was my first summer. So
The good old Sizzler trip. That's and by the way, if you guys want to know what some of these terminologies are, they're on the screen. If you're listening, you can always check out or check those out there. But that's phenomenal. How was that first sales school for you? I always feel like the first sales school, people who are regular listeners are like, yes, we know. But I always like to ask about this because it's the one that just smacks you in the face with positivity and like discipline. What are some things you remember about that sales school and that experience, like to just dive into that pool?
well, I mean, probably less so than Ogmandino. Mort Utley is what really stuck out to me.
Yes.
Mort, and that I love, ponytails, right? I mean, that's remember the pony, right? And
Yep.
I still show people that. I still will Google that for like new hires or salespeople at my different companies, like in the sales realm. and I'll show them like, hey, guys, I heard this in sales school, and this is a timeless truth. Remember the pony, right? And so like, who do you want to
So
be?
good.
Do you want to be the sibling that is finding everything wrong with the situation, or do you want to be the sibling that's like, there's got to be a pony around here someday somewhere?
So
and and
good.
and I just, man, that was etched in my brain. Like, I don't remember a lot of other stuff about that sales school, that first sales school, other than I was really hot, and I was like, wow, this is not going to be easy, but this will be good for me. Yeah, again, I give myself a little bit of credit, and I give Tim Ritzer, I give Travis Wilson a ton of credit, I give Joel Selesky, I mean, all of my brothers in the field, if you will, and sisters, just I felt like I had a really good frame of reference. I was going there to learn and grow as a person, and I did.
Oh, brilliant. Oh man. Well, here's the thing. We're approaching kind of like towards where we need to start wrapping up here. But two things. I need to have you back on again, whether I get you on with Joel or Tony, or like we get like a panel of y'all talking. That'd be kind of fun.
That'd
Kind
be
of
great.
I'm
That'd be
more
great.
relaxed, kind of sharing some beers, tough stuff, sharing more pure. We've done that before with other people, their you know, roommates and stuff of their first summers, that kind of stuff. So if you would like to, we'd love to have you back to get more stories out of you. Um, I did want to ask about as you were kind of working your way, how did you decide that you wanted to come back? Because you probably went and got that experience. So how did you determine, yes, I need to do this again? And why 3 summers, why not 4, and why not just one?
Sure. Well, quick answer. I mean, so 25 units my first summer, rookie, Sizzler trip, all that good stuff. I knew I wanted to come back because I wanted to learn how to be a student manager. I wanted to learn how to
Mm,
pour into
yep.
kids like Travis and Tim and Joel had poured into me, right? And so I wanted to give
Yes,
back,
sir.
and I was able to do that. In fact, I had just had a student that I trained, text me like three or 4 months ago saying like, hey, I just want to let you know that you believed in me when others didn't, and like literally it like made my day. I mean,
Wow.
I've done
Yeah.
deals, worth, I've done deals tens of millions of dollars in transaction value and price and all that stuff, and that act, that feedback meant far more than
Wow.
any large transaction. So that was why I went back my second summer. We had a short 9 week summer. The U of M was converting to from a quarter system to a semester, so we had a short summer. And what's crazy is Travis
Oh,
led that team, and we still crushed it. Like, we dominated. I personally did like just under 4,000 units in 8 weeks, like really 8.5 9 weeks. We
cranking.
I hit President's Club like 3 or 4 times for the first time ever, and then I came back to be an org leader the third year. Okay, so the third year was epic for me. I was an org leader. I can't remember it was either 7,200 units I did or 6,200. It was something like that.
Whoa.
But but
Big
but
growth.
I did Chairman's Club. I made Chairman's Club, and I think I hit that like 3 or 4 times. I mean, that was like, for me, that was unbelievable. I mean, and I just really perfected my craft at being relational with people and getting to the speed of trust with folks. And so, I mean, it was a natural development, but what was also natural is for me to leave Southwestern. I mean, it was like I'd done
Yeah.
everything I was going to get out of Southwestern. I'd done the individual, student manager, org leader, team of teams, and then it was time for me to go into the real world. The whole time during the school year, I'd always still worked at ENY or other places, gaining experience. So I was ready for the business world. I was ready to suit up, if you will, and do more B2B stuff. And so I feel like I maximized Southwestern. I think the danger with some people is that they probably stay in Southwestern too long. I feel like I left like right when I was at the height of it, as opposed to staying yet another year. And so, that's another lesson I learned from life is sometimes it's good to like walk away when you're at the top as opposed to overstaying or getting content, because contentment is a dangerous thing. So, um,
Oof.
I'm super blessed for my whole experience at Southwestern, without question.
Yes, sir. Wow, that's a great. You did Peyton Manning. You won the Super Bowl. I'm out. What a way to
Yeah,
leave. Serena Williams is great, but also she didn't make the finals this time. So it's like you gotta. There's nothing wrong with that. It's still a goat, but it's go out on top is the way to go.
for,
I think.
yeah, for
Good
sure,
stuff.
for sure.
All right, man. Well, we got a few minutes left. We can transition into some ponytails. Last couple of shout outs, and then we'll jump into that. Quick shout out to EnLight.Energy, our first ever partner. These guys have been with us since the beginning, supporting us. Thank you guys so much for that. They're in the solar business, and they are cranking one every other week. One sale every other week in solar gets you six figures. So if you sold books door to door, can you imagine how you could do? Let us know. We'll get you in touch with Alex Black. Cardinal Senior Benefits, again, one more shout out to them. Again, they're probably the ones that are the most consistent that have poured into us, and to make sure that we are successful. And so we want to make sure we give them a lot of love for that as well. And so thank you guys for that. All right, my friend Brian Slipka's Ponytails. Now, if you guys don't know, Ponytails means best stories, favorite stories. It could be a bunch of them back to back to back, or one big one. I never know what it's going to be. My friend, the microphone is yours. Here is Brian Slipka's Ponytails.
Ponytails. Well, there's a few of them. The first one I mentioned earlier in the show, I got in a horrible car accident. Quick story on this. This may be the main one I talk about today, but the I was selling. It was that the, the time at night where you had all your meetings lined up,
The
and I was,
gravy.
yeah, gravy period. And so gravy had just started. I was going from place to place. Unfortunately, earlier in the day, the alternator of my car had gone out. So I borrowed my host family's Ford Bronco. Like literally, this was like around the same time as O.J. Simpson.
OJ. Yeah.
A few years
Same
later,
98.
and it was this. It was the same. It was a white Ford Bronco. So like literally, it was
Wow.
like the same car. But it was a few years after that, of course. But so I'm driving the Ford Bronco during gravy. Went to a couple folks, made a couple sales. I took a shortcut through kind of like a farm implement. It was technically a road, but it was a gravel, not even a gravel road. It was like a dirt road, barely marked, but it was a shortcut to the other side of town to get to my next meeting. And there's a lot of 90-degree turns in this road, and I remember just looking down to see like what the address was of where I was going. And then the next thing I know, it's 3 days later, and I'm in a hospital. And what had happened is I had gone off a ravine, down a ravine, and cracked my head, and they found me. Another family who lived on that street found me about 12 hours later, in a not a good situation. I'd made it up to the top of the road, but I was disoriented. I don't remember any of this. I was disoriented, and the story gets even better because the way they found me was it was like in the middle of the night, right? It was like 4 in the morning or something, early, and
Oh,
the sun
yeah.
was just about to rise, and they they saw some coyotes, all hovering around on the road, and they're like, "Oh, those darn coyotes! They're gonna get, they're gonna get into our fields again." And so they drove up there, and the coyotes darted away, and what they were hovering around was me. I was like disoriented,
What?
and so that's how they found me. And to hear them tell the story was pretty crazy. But again, God's divine intervention, the timing of that. They found me, called an ambulance, brought me to the hospital.
Oh,
I don't really remember it.
man.
I don't really remember anything for until the next night, like over 24 hours later. But ended up being, obviously got concussed, ribs, all that's broken, all that stuff. But was back in the field like 5 days later, after getting released from the hospital, and ended up having a successful summer. And again, just part of the adversity, part of like, hey, it's like when you have something bad happen to you, like, what are three things that are great about this, right? and
Three
just
positives. That's
make
right.
yeah, just making the most of it really trained my brain. So that's probably the best story. But we all have a lot of great ones, but the other ones was just having a gun pointed kind of towards me, that same summer, and then that person ended up becoming my best customer, and we still stay in touch to this day.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a win.
and I mean that's pretty neat, and just establishing trust. And another crazy story. These are all from my first summer, but my first summer I got asked to go to prom with one of my customers' families, like their daughter. And so when I delivered books, so final week of deliveries, right? I'm making deliveries, going back and having them all sit around and showing them how to use the volume library. And then the mom's like, hey, hey, so and so, what's you know what's your you know what are you going to ask Brian? and I'm like, what's going on? This is getting awkward all of a sudden. So then the other kids leave the room, and then the mom leaves the room, and then the daughter's like, hey, I know I've only met you once, but like, I thought it might be, and asked me to, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I actually had a girlfriend which became my wife, Megan, back home. So I politely declined, but it was just kind of a weird, what a weird thing. I mean, but apparently I had impressed the parents well enough to where they felt it was okay for their daughter to ask me to go to, and I'm sorry, it wasn't prom, it was homecoming, but because it was that fall, right? But
what a good time.
funny story. Yep.
That's some good ponytails right there, my friend. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was crazy. A lot of people, I'm sure, a lot far more crazy and troublesome ones, but those are some good ones that I had.
Those are pretty par for the course for really good stories. The funny part is to us bookfield people, us book folks are like, oh yeah, of course, that happens. But
no big deal. I can see that happening.
Yeah, other people are like, what? The gun to the face? Like they even that is like a lot. So you're like, that happened twice a week. Come on now, I'm a brown man in the middle of upstate New York. How many times you think I got a gun in my face? All the time.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Crazy. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, my good friend, we'll call this one good for now, but we will definitely have to have you back. And if you'd be open to it, we'd love to invite you with some of your book friends that you met along the way to have like a kind of a panel show or something like that. I also will stay in touch with you about some other stuff I'm thinking about because we're trying to come up and hold like alumni reunions in different cities, and it sounds like we have a lot of Minneapolis book guys, and women that we need to go and say hello to. So if we could get some gathering up there, that'd be great, and get your help with that. That'd be awesome. So sweet guys, hey, thank you so much. Again, this has been the Ponytails podcast. We have been with Brian Slipka. This is episode 156. Man, so awesome. We're 2 episodes away from the end. Next up, we have Leslie Saunier. I think I'm saying that right, Saunier. And then, of course, we are ending our season finale with Ron Alford, which, I mean, come on, legendary book guy right there. Season opener with Robin Mukherjee for season 7. So make sure you guys stay in touch with that. Go check us out. We do have a newsletter that's out. It's called The Cult. Of course, it's got to be called. It's horse related, and come on, the Colts. So check it out. It's once a month. You guys can check out what's happening on the podcast. Stay in touch and up to date. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you on the next one.